I said the Chinese conceive power on the level of strategies. First of all, because it does not want to compete head-to-head with the United States in military arms race, especially with the cautionary tale of the collapse of the Soviet Union. And then, it is also rooted in the tradition of Chinese thinking. Take the book of Sun Tzu, the most famous of Chinese writing on war. It's called The Art of War. But have you thought about why it's called the art of war, not the resources of war? Like what we have, the correlates of war is what Singularity does. It's the most cited. That's basically the resources for war, right? You can see from these two titles the different thinking, the different conception of power. Instead of the correlates of war, you say the art of war, and throughout the book, Sun Tzu does not talk about the correlates of war. It is talk about war as if, with all the correlates of war as given. And given the resources you have, how to win a war with strategies. That's what he talks about. And that's why I said it is the Chinese tradition to conceive power as strategies. And so with this tradition and with this cautionary tale, the Chinese strategists look at the Iraq War while the whole world was shocked and said, well, how can anyone resist an invasion from the US? But the Chinese said, actually we can. Even Iraq could have. But they have missed the opportunity. In a dialectic way, the Chinese thinks this strength of the American power is also the very weakness of the American power. What's the strength of American power? High tech, smart bombs, smart weapons. But why is it also the weakness of the American power? Because it all depends on one thing. What is it? Guess. Information. Without information and communication, smart bombs will turn into stupid bombs. Right? Where does it go? Then it is exactly the point where the Chinese asymmetric strategy comes in, which has the principle of defeating the superior with inferior. Superior or inferior, this is on the level of bordered resource container, the correlates. But how can you defeat it? Because they conceive power as strategies. So what is the ingredients of this asymmetric strategy? First is asymmetric strategic deterrence in terms of nuclear weapons. China has a no first use policy and has a small reserve, but sufficient and effective enough so it does not bankrupt its budget. Second is asymmetric strategic goals. China does not aim to win a conflict vis-à-vis the United States, but it aims not to lose. Well, is there a difference? Big difference. As long as you do not lose, like guerrilla war, it can go on and on and on. It doesn't have to win a single battle, but it does not lose. Then you can win on the political bargaining table. Historical example, the Korean War. Okay? Asymmetric information. These defeat the superior with the inferior necessarily entail the secrecy and deception. You do not want other people to know everything you have. That's why China is very reluctant to have high-level exchange, military exchange with the United States. And asymmetric strategy, which is in two parts. One is in anti-access strategy and the acupuncture warfare. What's acupuncture? Acupuncture is you basically conceive the human body running with numerous energy lines, and then you put a needle on certain points to actually release, unblock the energy. But here, the acupuncture warfare, if you control certain points, important, critical points, then you can block the flow of information. Right? So, in order to do that, it aims to blind, deafen, and paralyze the enemy central nervous system. And in order to do that, first, you have to attack the C4ISR, which means command, control, communication, computers, surveillance, and reconnaissance. All these are essential for the American operation. Two ways to do it, to attack it: soft kill by cyber attack, electronic jamming, electromagnetic attack, either by nuclear or not. You can detonate a nuclear weapon in the exo-atmospheric zone and completely destroy the sensors of the satellites. Short radio wave, radio frequency weapon attack, etc. Also hard kill. You can use missile, air attack, or special operation forces, etc. And then computer networks. You can also soft kill, same way, or hard kill. And satellites, you can soft kill with laser, microwave, particle beam weapons, and electromagnetic attacks. And these have been already being intensively studied, been a process of studying and even testing in China. And hard kill with anti-satellite weapons, missiles. An aircraft carrier, which is a major mean of power projection, you can soft kill it, as you can hard kill it with anti-ship ballistic missile that China is near deployment. So, in order to implement this, let's look at what China is doing. Well, its space technology is literally skyrocketing, and it has sent. It's the third country to send a man a person into space, and it has launched Moon Explorer satellite, Mars Explorer, and starting to build its own space station, and its own GPS, and also to send an astronaut to Moon in 2020. Let's see about information technology. This is very secret and it's still everybody's guess, but you can see the symptoms, the signs. Then China is accused of numerous attacks by Western countries, and the latest is the Google affair. Early this year, remember? It caused a huge controversy. And then the laser particle beams, and China is accused by the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office Director of illuminating an American satellite. If you can illuminate it, you can destroy it. And of course, there's China's anti-ship has tested its anti-ship ballistic missile, and the commander of the U.S. Pacific Command said it's near to operational. And in this context that we have seen the first two tests at the beginning of the presentation, the anti-satellite and the interception. So, I'm at the end of my presentation, and what does this mean? Well, in the words of Bruce McDonald, the former senior director of the Congressional Commission on Strategic Posture of the United States, he said, after the end of the Cold War, the U.S. Missile Defense, the NMD, planning and policy has tactically assumed the United States would have the strategic missile defense and others would not. But this test now challenges that assumption. And if China deploys even a thin layer of strategic missile defense, and it will challenge the continued credibility of the American strategic nuclear deterrent, on which more than 30 of the American allies depend. Well, if the American allies depend on the American nuclear deterrence for security as the basis of all the alliance, if this is no longer credible, then no matter how much the U.S. construct along the vicinity of China, then with one move, then its credibility is sabotaged. And which means through these unique conception of power as strategies, China hopes to avoid a direct and costly military arms race with the United States, which it will never win in the traditional sense conception of power. Well, at least not in 50 years in the estimation of Chinese strategists. But through this unique conception, and it will have this consequence that China can have a much bigger leverage by a very small input. And that's why the logic of the Chinese strategic thinking behind its security policy, which is inherently has external and foreign policy implications, and it hopes to achieve the effect that with this development, then the possible containment around China will just disappear. Thank you very much.